component of, or about that, for the Clean Off-Road Voucher Incentive Project. And the fifth one overall. Before we go too far into this, I'd like to make a few comments in Spanish about interpretation services available for participation. Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Eloy Flores. Hoy tenemos la segunda junta para el programa CORE. Esta junta va a tener servicios de intérprete para participantes. Para ustedes que que tienen computadora, pueden ver un botón abajo que dice inglés o español. Si necesitan servicios en español, por favor, oprimen el botón y escogen español. Thank you so much for those of you for your patience. Again, my name is Eloy Flores. I'm one of the staff overseeing the development of CORE, and I'm joined today by several other staff. Our project lead, Todd Sterling, Matt Diener, and Tess Seacat, who is our chief, and Amrit Sandhu, who's been helping us out along this process. All of them have played key roles and significant roles in getting this program off the ground, along with our project administrator, Jacob Whitson with CalStart. So I'd like to thank all of you and thank them for their help in putting this all together. Believe it or not, the moment we hung up the phone back on June 2nd, we immediately started preparation for this presentation. So it is not something that just magically comes together. So I thank them for their assistance in putting this all together. A little information on today's work group logistics. We are recording this presentation and it is being provided with Spanish interpretation. A copy of the recording will be posted on CARB's low carbon transportation website within a few weeks. As luck would have it, we are in the middle of summer thunderstorms here in Southern California. Of course, as technology goes, if I get knocked off, please bear with us as we adapt through some of the technical challenges. This presentation is not too long. I will go through the meeting slides and stop at key points for comments and discussion. However, when we do stop, I'd ask that we focus on the topics. We'll be covering other topics in the presentation, and I don't want to get too bogged down in just one spot. We will, however, open up to comments and questions for the entire presentation at the end of the show. My contact information will be at the end. If you have additional questions or comments at the end of the meeting, you can contact me via email. If you have any unanswered questions, if there are any unanswered questions that we don't get to in the Q&A, I will get back to you and answer those questions to you via email. And as always, we appreciate you being here and your patience if we run into any technical glitches. The goal of today's workshop is to provide a general overview of CORE, SB 170 or Senate Bill 170 funds for California's small businesses and sole proprietor professional landscapers, and how the implementation manual, which describes all of the elements of CORE and sets forth the terms and conditions for participation, should get updated to be consistent with those requirements in the statute. Today's discussion will focus on purchaser participation and eligible equipment. We also want to provide an update to some of the questions we received from our previous work group. Let's go to slide 2, please. A quick rundown of what we would like to cover today. First, an overview of the CORE program. This will include details of the funding and a timeline. We will also discuss comments collected from the first work group, followed by user participation, core eligible equipment, voucher amounts, and we will explain a process called co-funding or stacking, as it's commonly referred to as a potential opportunity for additional funding. We will then finish up with some basics for dealer participation and our contact information. Again, this is the second work group meeting for this component of CORE. In our last meeting, we focused on manufacturers and dealers. This meeting will focus on purchasers, users, and equipment. Many of these items we're presenting here are proposed, and the main purpose for us is here gathering today is to hear from you. For some, this may be the first time participating in a process like this. But maybe not for others. Regardless, we want to know about your experiences and how we can build this program so it can best support you, your business, and other professional landscapers around the state. While we're the ones presenting, this is really about you. As we take the next steps into a zero emission future, it's important to us that everyone has a seat at the table so that we know how we can best assist you in this transition to zero emission technology. Let's go to slide 3, please. Now a little overview on CORE. CORE was originally launched in 2020 with the goal of accelerating the deployment of advanced zero emission technology in the off-road freight sector by providing a streamlined way for fleets to access funding to help offset the higher cost of such technology. In the past, CORE funding was limited to use in the freight sector, yard trucks, large capacity forklifts, and things of that nature, things you might see around a port or a warehouse operation. In this latest round of funding, CORE has expanded to include construction, ag, commercial hovercraft, and of course, what we're here to talk about today, commercial landscape. The state provided $30 million to California-based small businesses and sole proprietors providing professional landscape services. CORE targets commercial-ready products for these sectors, which have yet achieved a significant market foothold. Over the past few months, we've been meeting with equipment dealers, manufacturers, and a few owners of landscape companies. We're trying to learn more about your industry. Your suggestions, recommendations will help make a great program. CORE is a first come, first served voucher process system intended to be simple and user-friendly. It's done at the point of sale when you decide to buy, at the moment you decide to buy your equipment. But because it's a first come, first served program, we always recommend to stay informed and act quickly when the process opens. CORE does not require scrappage. This means you don't have to turn in or destroy a piece of equipment to receive funding. Let's go to slide 4, please. Here's the general timeline. There are a few arrows here, so let me explain what they're at, where we're at. You may recall I mentioned CORE has various components, including freights, construction, and others. These sectors are represented by the blue arrow, CORE's heavy-duty off-road component. As you can see, the implementation manual has been updated, and we expect to start receiving applications for vouchers on July 18th. The landscaping component is the green arrow. This process will move fast. As you can see, we're in our second work group and already halfway through the necessary steps to launch. Today, work group 2 will focus on purchasers, equipment and vouchers, and dealer support of purchase. For work group 3, we intend to release the implementation manual with the professional landscaping at the same time. The implementation manual updated, we will open to manufacturers and dealers. The implementation manual, by the way, is basically the rule book for how dealers, manufacturers, and purchasers all access and utilize this program. So it's a very important document. It's basically our rule book or our Bible for this particular program. The whole purpose of this effort is to update that manual and to have a section dedicated to the professional landscapers and referencing the zero emission landscape equipment only. We will develop the IM to reflect the ideas and comments collected through our work groups and meetings. Once completed and approved, we will open up to receive applications from the manufacturers and open up to dealer trainings. Finally, opening to vouchers in early fall. We will continue to meet with interested parties throughout this development process. However, I do want to emphasize that it is our intent to continue outreach services to purchasers throughout this process. Let's go to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. The CORE program is funded by 2 funding pots, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and the Air Pollution Control Fund. Without getting too much into the details, each fund has its requirements and limitations on how these funds can be spent. $30 million, the $30 million is from a bill known as SB 170. It will flow through CORE specifically for professional landscape equipment for sole proprietor and small business owners. To fulfill the requirements in this bill, we are currently proposing to fund zero emission commercial grade leaf blowers, lawnmowers, chainsaws, pole saws, string trimmers, and if there are other pieces of equipment that we should consider, that's why we're here today. So please let us know. Slide 6, please. Now, let's go through some of the work we've done together to this point. Listed here are some of the comments we've received from the previous work group. I'll go through with what we recorded and explain what our response is. Requiring scrap, or basically the destruction of equipment. For those who may not know, the term scrap is a term we use to describe the removal of a piece of equipment from service. So basically trading it in, destroying the equipment. CORE is not a scrap and replace program. As such, it is not possible for us to mandate such action. However, as I mentioned earlier, there are parallel programs for additional funding could require scrappage. We will discuss these additional funding opportunities later in the presentation. Another comment we heard was dedicated funding for a specific region. As I mentioned, CORE is a first come, first served statewide program. As a result, setting aside funds for one particular area over another could place certain areas that are equally in need at a disadvantage. So it's something that we wouldn't do. Replacing, another comment we heard was replacing dirtier engines first, like two strokes or things like that. The goal of this program is intended to increase deployment of zero emission landscape equipment, regardless of the type of equipment that's being used by a purchaser. So that would be something that we probably would not do. Noise, and then another comment we heard was noise, about a noise from a zero emission equipment. Zero emission equipment is inherently quieter than much of its gas powered brethren or equal equivalents. So we generally would not put a noise limit on those pieces of equipment. The other is outreach. We want to gather as much insight and information from the most impacted parties, our sole proprietors and small business professional landscapers. It's a challenge to reach this group. However, many of you have provided contacts and leads to organizations and groups that represent these parties. Still, the more people we are able to reach, the better. Additionally, our project administrator is currently developing a comprehensive outreach strategy that could include unique media targeting and incorporate local events like working with dealers and their respective stores, meeting users where they're most comfortable. Still, we're always open to recommendations and bringing people into this process. And as such, please don't hesitate to provide information about this program to people in the industry, friends, families, neighbors, and of course, your own landscapers. Next slide, please. These next two items were also issues that were discussed. I will take a pause after these next two slides for discussion. But first, let's discuss small business definition. SB 170 requires these funds be for small businesses and sole proprietors. In our previous meeting, we presented the current definition of California small business, which is a California business that is 100 employees or less with an average gross receipts of $15 million or less over the previous 3 years, or is a manufacturer as defined by this subdivision C. When we presented this in our first work group, many voiced concerns that the value limit was too high. Based on the comments, we are proposing a few options. The first would be to adjust the limit to the definition for microbusiness. As you can see, it's much lower at 2.5 million with gross receipts over the 3 years and 25 employees. The second would be to limit participants to businesses of 10 or less for the first 6 months. There are challenges with both these proposals, but we'd like to hear from you. I'm going to go to the next slide, and then we will open up for discussion on this and the next issue as well. Another topic that was discussed was providing proof of a business or being a business owner. To participate in CORE, you must prove business status. Back on June 2nd, Todd mentioned we were looking into developing a process that made it possible to ensure the equipment was getting into the hands of professional landscapers, but was also not limited and in a way that impedes those who need it most. As a result, we are proposing equipment purchasers show proof of business status. Excuse me, I'm sorry. For example, 1, a contractor's license; 2, a business license; a taxpayer, a tax ID, a business tax ID, a personal tax ID, or a dealer attestation. A dealer would simply attest to the purchaser being a small business or sole proprietor. Abuse would be controlled by dealer participation. If we detected abuse, we would eliminate that dealer from participation. Those are some of the things, these 2 items, we'll pause here and open up to discussion on these 2 items and some of the things we've talked about so far. We've got 2 raised hands, 3 raised hands. Amrit, can we open up to those folks with raised hands?
Yes, our first raised hand is from Daniel Mabe. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan Mabe. I'm founder and president of the American Green Zone Alliance, AGZA. Eloy, I wanted to ask a question on the dealer attestment number 5. In South Coast, as you know, I think that they required a driver's license and a business card. The demographic that is very challenging to reach, of course, are the proprietors in a pickup truck. Usually their first language is Spanish. And I just wanted to know, what would they be required to present to the dealers when they go in, that specific demographic?
That's a great comment, Dan. And one of the reasons why we're reaching out to folks here today is to look at different avenues that would be both meeting the spirit of our intent for the program and also not limiting people who could potentially benefit from the program. You mentioned that South Coast is currently looking at or uses business cards and a driver's license. And of course, we can look at that and put that into the process of a dealer attestation. I don't see why that would be inhibit, but we can certainly look at that as a comment. I think that's a great idea to align with some of the programs that are out there.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for your comment. Next hand, please, Emrit.
Thank you. Yeah, got a raised hand from Lauren Elkin. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, my name is Lauren Elkin. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Lauren Elkin. I'm with Valley Memorial Park. We're a small 40-acre cemetery in Northern California. My concern is that the definition of ignoring, instead of staying with the intent of the legislation that said define small business, you've created something outside what the legislation is indicating. And in our particular case, we won't meet that criteria, so we're being excluded from the voucher program. And that's really a serious concern for me, because obviously with 40 acres, we've got a lot of equipment that we're going to have to convert, and it's creating an economic burden for us. So I believe that you should go back to where the legislation came back and said small business and stay within that definition and move forward so that we all have an equitable approach to this instead of favoring certain groups, whatever their particular interests are, and that we all have the same opportunity equally as business owners or entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Next hand, please, Emrit.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from Chris Benz. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Thank you. Chris Benz, Napa Climate Now in Napa, California. And we've been talking with local equipment dealers to try and let them know that this program is coming along. And one of them, who'd been in business for over 20 years, has said that his concern is really for people who have about 5 employees. That's the small business that will be most heavily impacted. So I appreciate your looking at 10 employees or less. But the other situation I wanted to make you aware of is he has 37 backpack batteries on order. You know, part of what the timeline may run into if you limit it to the first 6 months is the supply chain issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. That's awesome.
Thank you. Our next raised hand is from Eric Swanson. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Eric Swanson, and I'm with Calmar Solutions. Calmar Solutions is a terminal tractor manufacturer. And while I know that the beginning part of the conversation here has been around landscaping equipment, the comment really is regarding the small business versus micro business. Terminal tractors are used in warehouse and distribution operations. And to my knowledge, if you're excluding down to 25 employees or less in a grocery store, food chain, distribution center, I think you're going to exclude most distribution centers. Most distribution centers will probably have more than 25 employees and would therefore fall into your original intent of the small business. So I would encourage staying with the small business, particularly as it relates to terminal tractors and that category.
No problem.
Thanks.
No, Eric, real quick. So as I mentioned earlier in our presentation, CORE has various components to it for this funding cycle. We have freight, which you're familiar with, and we've added now agricultural equipment, construction equipment, and professional landscape. Professional landscape will have its own exclusive addendum to the appendix to the implementation manual. So freight and ag and construction will not be impacted or subject to the specific carve-outs that we put into this particular piece. So this will not affect you.
Okay, that's fair. I maybe missed that in the very beginning. Sorry.
No worries, sir. I didn't want you to go away concerned. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Regardless, thank you for your comment and participation today.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ron Asklund. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Ron Asklund with SD Sequel. We're a coalition of quite a few members: Electrify Now, San Diego 350, the League of Women Voters, Clean Earth for Kids, the Climate Reality Project, and the Sierra Club. So we've been interacting with your team quite a bit. We're very happy to see the proposal of 10 or less as the definition of a small business. I think this fits the goal of SB 170. Still, I think having ride-on mowers, I think that's something we need to talk about. The small guys in a pickup truck, at least in the neighborhoods I see, never have ride-on mowers. If you stick with the limits you have right now, one ride-on mower uses up 60 leaf blowers, which are highly polluting. So while we kind of understand that you don't want to give a preference to two strokes, allowing one ride-on mower to use up the ability to replace 60 leaf blowers is a real mistake. As far as sound, I'd like to hear more from the manufacturers. What I've heard, maybe Dan Mabe and some other folks know a lot more than I do. I've heard that most leaf blowers that are electric are below 65, but some are terrible, up at 75. So I think you're missing an opportunity there if some really noisy equipment sneaks through. So that's all for now. I think I'll have some other comments at the end. Thank you.
Ron, thank you for your comment, and it's always a pleasure working with your group. Thank you, sir.
Right.
Thank you. The next question is from Eric Swanson. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Eric Swanson again with Calmar Solutions. I think I just maybe forgot to lower my hand. I'm sorry.
No worries. That's my bad. I'll go on to the next one. Our question, we've got a raised hand from Matteo Waldberger. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi there, this is Matteo Waldberger. I own a landscaping business here in San Diego, California, as well as a pressure washing business that serves the northern county of San Diego. I just had a question, or I wanted to, put my 2 cents in regards to the small business side of it. Could there be the potential to have the, I know you said the first 6 months for the 10 or less employees. Could you, by any chance, could you do or consider the first 30 days for sole proprietors and single person operations? Because I know there's a lot of individuals like myself who have a basically one person operation who, such a large portion of their, gross revenue would be allocated for a zero emissions transformation to their business model, that it would really benefit, the one person operation to have that 30-day period. Thank you.
A great comment, Matteo. Thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing more comments from you throughout the presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Matteo, for showing up today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. We're going to take one more raised hand and then move over to our written questions. So we have a raised hand from Jerry Desmond. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Thank you, folks. Jerry Desmond with the Cemetery and Mortuary Association of California. Just following up on we're new to this, process, but would like to emphasize, as stated before, that there are a number of cemeteries that have significant acreage, of course, in terms of landscaping. A number of them are small businesses. We would tend towards a broad, the SB 170 definition of small businesses that would be more encompassing. And we fit in as we would be not only contracting with vendors, but we would be doing landscape, on our own. And we look forward to opportunities through this program, but we would caution to be not to be overly restrictive as we get this off the ground, especially with the goals of the program. And look forward to being engaged. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Desmond. I really appreciate you being here. Let's go ahead and take some of the written comments, and then we'll go back to the last few raised hands and then proceed with the presentation.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eloy. We have a question here from Joy Walters. Are you working with American Green Zone Association, since Dan Mabe is working with the vendors of equipment and with gardeners and landscapers?
So yeah, we have been part of our process is working with other divisions within CARB, and CARB does actually work with AGSA, and we have had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Mabe, and he just commented a little while ago. So yes, we've been in communication with him. Thank you so much for that comment.
Thank you. We've got a question from Matthew Frazier. Good afternoon. Wondering if there will be a certificate of attendance or completion for this webinar for his QWEL certificate.
No, there's no certification for this meeting. It's just, this is a work group meeting for a CARB event for a process that we're trying to work on for this core project for professional landscapers, try to get them zero emission equipment. And there's not a professional certification meeting.
Next question, please.
All right, next question. Would pressure washers qualify as landscapers or construction?
That's a great comment and something we can definitely take a look at.
But also, I think we want to keep the focus on the SB 170 language. And in that language, it did give us some guidelines on what they were thinking about when they wrote the bill. And that is, limited to, including but not limited to, leaf blowers and lawnmowers. So that kind of gives us a definition that we're trying to look at. So, but thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is, under the proposal to limit to landscapers with 10 employees or less, is that 10 full-time employees or employees of any category?
The limit on in personnel would be specific to landscape.
We'll have to look into that. I've never thought about it that way.
I'm sorry, I may have
If you
misheard.
have 20 part-time employees, is that the same as 10 full-time employees? I don't know. I'll have to look into that.
I apologize. I may have misheard the question on that.
Thank you. I'll go to the next question from Richard Falcon. Will this program be available for landscapers who are visa challenged? Can a local CBO be the conduit to these businesses?
So that is kind of what we're trying to do here through a dealer attestation. And these are the required. We do need to show that there is proof of a business. This is what some of the potential proposed items we have to prove that. But if there are others, we're open to taking proposals and comments on this issue. So we want to keep it open to as many people who could benefit from this as possible. Tess, did you want to elaborate on that?
Mostly that the intent is for the purchaser, whoever owns a piece of equipment and is going to be using it and maintaining it. That's the access point for the purchaser application. So.
Thank you. Our next question here is from Mitchell Ainsworth. What is the list of equipment currently eligible through the program?
Jumping ahead of us. There's a little bit more in our presentation, and we'll be getting into that shortly.
Thank you. I have a couple comments from Carolyn Marsden. I'm going to read those out one by one. Many of the small landscapers will not have those documents to prove their biz status. The second.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I can go one by one.
Go ahead.
Okay. Second comment was allocating money by region can be done fairly by population. And the third comment I have here is if those of us in San Diego don't know how much, if any, money is coming hard to get to landscapers on board.
Okay. Yeah, so again, I'll start with the last one first. It is a statewide program, and we want to keep it open to the entire state without limiting it to potential impacted parties in other areas of the state who are in just as much need. As for folks who may not be able to provide, 1 through 4, we do know that through some of the work that we've done that dealers do establish a relationship with the folks who are doing this type of work. And so we're looking to potential avenues for utilizing that relationship to ensure that this equipment is getting into the right hands and not being, and that the process or the program would not be abused. To that end, we're here to discuss proposals, options, and recommendations and suggestions. And we already heard from, for example, Mr. Mabe, who suggested that we parallel a program that is currently in South Coast. And for those of you who don't know, the South Coast Air Quality Management District encompasses the Los Angeles area and some of the adjoining counties, which requires a business card as part of that attestation process. So we will definitely look at some other avenues so that we don't exclude folks, but we also meet the intent of this program. Let's switch back to the raised hands. We'll finish up with the raised hands, and if we didn't get to you on the Q&A, we'll take another stop, and then it further on down the line, and then hopefully be able to get to your question before the end of today's presentation. We're almost done. We're halfway through, and we're almost done. We've got some key pieces that we'd like to present.
All right, thank you, Eloy. We have a raised hand from Matthew Frazier. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Yes, thank you. It's Matthew Frazier with Ace Hardware in San Jose, California, a key holder and assistant manager. And one of the things that I've tried to do, and several of my colleagues have tried to do, is to persuade people to use as much as possible the battery operated power equipment, such as the Egos, just to minimize the carbon footprint. So a lot of what I'm hearing in the presentation is very relevant to the message that we're trying to carry to our customers. And if they are going to use a gasoline powered piece of equipment, to go with something that's at least a hybrid. So thank you for this presentation, and just letting you know I'll be bringing the message to our contractors and our customers.
Matthew, we thank you and Ace for participating today. And thank you for your comments, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next raised hand is from Matthew Bograti. Sorry if I butchered that name. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hello, my name's Matt Fogarty. I am a civilian living in the suburbs. I'm really annoyed by all the noises and the pollution coming from the landscaping equipment, and I very much applaud you and the program for kicking it off with this rebate program. So I tend to I think that the smaller companies, like if it's going to be a limit, is 30 million is going to get used up, then having it for the smaller companies makes more sense. So less than 10 people. I realize these big companies out there, the cemeteries and stuff, that will have lots of equipment, but also cemeteries are not right in where people live. You know, like they're massive and they're far away, so the noise pollution is a lot less bang for buck. You get a lot better deal for kind of residential suburban stuff, and those tend to be smaller companies. So just one suggestion. So instead of limiting the size of the company, how about limit the total amount of rebates per company? So maybe have a maximum of $10,000 or $20,000 per company to start off, and then see how that goes. Because then, I mean, that's equal for your cemetery guy who's got whatever, $1 million of equipment. I mean, he can get 10 grand, as is the small guy can get 10 grand, but the small guy, it's like all his equipment. And in that way, these funds could potentially be used both equitably and also like really benefit the small guy. And in terms of the undocumented employees, I think that's a huge issue, and making it kind of easier to get is going to be part of that. But you've also got to be aware of the fumes. And then just one last thing is that if companies are signing up to this, they have to actually offer this as a service. Like if someone's going to get 20 grand's worth of equipment, that has to be part of their menu. There's like a suburban whatever landscape customer. If my contractor is getting 20 grand's worth of electric equipment from the state, they have to offer that as a service to me. Sure, they can continue to offer gasoline powered, and maybe that's like $60 a mow and blow, and maybe the electric's like $70 or $80 because it's slower. But at the moment, most contractors are only offering gasoline because it's much faster and more profitable for them. So I think as an obligation to the people taking this, that they should be obliged to offer that. And you're not saying that they can't offer the gasoline powered, but it has to be part of their menu offering, so that people kind of, whatever, the suburban people like me who are complaining about the noise and stuff, we're getting bang for buck, and it's really pushing change like that. Because the last thing we want is for these people, for the landscape companies to get this stuff and not use it, because we know that it's less powerful. We know it's less profitable to do
Matt, thank you.
The gas. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, sir. We want to get as many folks in, and we're already approaching the hour, but I do want to first thank you for being here, and thank you so much for your comment and some of these great recommendations and suggestions. We've got 4 more hands, and then we'll get through those, and then we'll move on. If we can focus your questions so we can get through. We've got a few more things, and then we'll open it up once again to question and answers. Thank
you. We've got a raised hand from Jerry Desmond. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Was that Jerry? Was that? I think that might have been left over from his previous comment.
Okay. And then we've got our next raised hand by Daniel Mabe. Daniel, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
I apologize. This is Richard Ogawa. I'm actually owner of Garden Line Power Equipment. We've been a outdoor power equipment dealer since 1960, and have been kind of pushing this change for battery conversion from gas for over 10 plus years. And I want to go back to what one of the previous speakers spoke about earlier, and the supply chain issue is very significant right now. I have back orders that are now being placed down into December to 6 to 9 months out. So this has to be a serious concern that's being addressed, because I myself as a dealer can't supply enough product to supply my current customers, let alone hold inventory for 6 to 9 months to try to have enough product and supply to help customers convert their existing gas products into battery. So I think the timing of your program needs to have some flexibility based off of that. And the investment is significant. It's generally 6 to 7 times more to go from a gas product to a battery powered product. So I think that limiting it to a dollar amount makes a lot of sense to what the previous speaker or person talked about, because then I think you can get more bang for your dollar. And the other big thing that's been a big miss is the discussion about when you go to 100% battery, you have significant infrastructure and safety challenges. One of it is trying to charge all these batteries in a safe environment. And you need to be looking at equipment that can help you manage and deal with that as well. And I'd also like to stress the training aspect of it. Using battery products and how to utilize it and how to get the most out of your runtime, and the safety issues of it are extremely important. And so I think that there should be some investment looked into for the training aspect in terms of when you're converting from gasoline to battery. Thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from Shida Morshed. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Shida Morshed with the environmental group Resilient Palisades. We are in Pacific Palisades, Los Angeles, and we are working to get rid of gas equipment to help our homeowners and gardeners, to educate them and empower them. And we've been doing this for about 2 years now. And, you know, Dan Mabe is our gas-free consultant. And, you know, it does seem like there have been so many good comments today that we agree with, even with the previous caller about the infrastructure and making these electric equipment more safe. But the two big points that, you know, we want to get across is it really is a mom and pop issue. Like, our community is mostly served by mom and pop gardeners. We've had events with Dan Mabe where we lay out electric equipment and he stands there and anybody passing by can stop by and talk to us. And it's always the mom and pop gardeners that show up asking for help, asking about the rebates, saying they went to get something and the rebates were out. The larger companies, we've contacted them, we've tried to work with them, and they all say we own electric equipment and we will use them if homeowners ask us to. So I just wanted to reiterate what a few people have said is, you know, however, this cannot just, you know, we do have to limit the funding or to come up with a solution where the mom and pop gardeners can actually take advantage. And also that, you know, from what we've experienced, and we've talked to communities across the country that have tried limiting or getting rid of gas-powered equipment, there is a lot of power that comes from doing grassroots efforts. I don't think this is a top-down approach. You know, we've had homeowner train, we go to homeowners, we hold events in their backyards. We walk around, we talk to gardeners, and 99% of people we've talked to have never even heard of the CARB program or what's out there. So either, PSAs are not working or the information is not getting out there. So if the homeowners are part of the solution, they need to, learn more about this. And I think local community education programs like what AGSA is doing, Dan Mabe, I really feel like, from our experience and just working on this nonstop for the past 2.5 years, Santa Monica residents, Pasadena, other people have said the same thing. They feel like it's a grassroots effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheeta. And we'll do one more raised hand and then move on to the rest of the presentation. There is another point where we will take a pause.
All right, we've got a raised hand from Nancy McKeever. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
My name is Nancy McKeever. I am a retired state employee who is now doing volunteer work south in Sacramento, focused on clean and quiet yard care. And basically that means getting gasoline out of landscape equipment. And when I heard the last commenter, I just want to second the notion of bottom-up citizen activists to get these programs promoted and raise awareness. We're doing that in our neighborhood, and it's worked actually quite well. But things like providing people who get vouchers to go electric to replace their equipment maybe can get yard signs or something to put out so people see, oh, there's an electric thing, it's cleaner, it's quieter. Or, public service announcements are great, but perhaps CARB could do a program, a training program. It could be done on Zoom, where neighborhood associations can log on and sort of replicate what we've done, what a lot of other communities have done, and make it a thing to help promote the adoption of this program and to create market demand, frankly, from the people who hire landscapers. They're going to want the electric, and it's just to promote the whole concept because it is not well known right now. That's all.
Eloy, you're on.
Eloy, you're muted.
I apologize. Thank you so much for your comment, Nancy. We'll go ahead and move on with the presentation, and we'll go to slide 9, please. Thank you so much. While we recognize that running a business is challenging enough, and we've heard from some folks today, so we definitely know that that's true. Today, to that end, we're trying to develop a process for participating that is both easy and meets the intended goals for this program. First, purchasers would work with approved dealers. Clearly, the more approved participating dealers, the more professional landscapers can participate. These dealers will not only have the approval of the manufacturer to sell core equipment, but will also be approved to participate by the program itself. There are certain requirements for dealers that I'll go over later in this presentation. Second, as I've mentioned previously, this is a first come, first serve program. In other words, the sooner you get to a participating dealer, the greater chance you'd have at receiving a voucher. Third, purchasers will select from a list of eligible equipment, and the dealer will prepare the necessary documentation and submit it on behalf of the purchaser at the time of purchase. We want to make this process as simple as possible and limit the paperwork at the point of sale. Finally, there is a 3-year ownership commitment. We may reach out to you during that time to see how things are going. Recommendations and follow up on your experience with the equipment, maybe service and repair and durability. Let's go to slide 10, please. Now, there's been some questions on core eligible equipment, so let me go down this here real quick with you. Core currently requires manufacturers to apply and submit equipment data to participate. This information is evaluated by CARB before the equipment is made eligible for purchase. This process is not new for Core and is currently required for the other programs under Core. Currently, a list of requirements for participation can be found in attachment A of the implementation manual. That is exclusive for our heavy duty freight and freight, construction and ag equipment. While the equipment evaluation process for landscape equipment may vary, it is our intent to evaluate the equipment in a similar manner to ensure that only commercial grade equipment is allowed in the program, and as only commercial grade equipment will be eligible for funding. However, we are working on the parameters of what defines commercial. To date, we are considering warranty and serviceability in addition to a manufacturer's designation that the product is indeed commercial. We are proposing that any commercial landscape equipment made available for purchase through CORE have a minimum 2-year warranty for both the product and the battery. Further, through participating dealers, manufacturers are expected to provide service and support. Clearly, this requires manufacturers to provide workforce development to their dealer network, and it's a process that we're proposing manufacturers explain at the time of their application to participate in CORE. Moreover, the equipment can be removed from eligibility if it's identified that the product fails to meet its intended performance. Let's go to the next slide, please. As I previously stated, I have two earlier in the presentation, just like the other 2 slides, I have 2 slides here that are very similar and will open up to discussion after the second slide. And so we can openly discuss these tables. We're looking for your feedback on proposed equipment and proposed voucher amounts. First, are there other pieces of equipment we should be considering? As you can see here, we're currently listing edgers, string trimmers, chainsaws, and pole saws as pieces of equipment that we would fund. Now let's assume you are buying a leaf blower, and based on these proposed amounts, you would get $250 off the equipment and $400 off a small capacity cartridge style battery and charger, or $1,200 for a larger backpack style battery and charger. Is this the expected, the range of what you would expect to receive? Is it too much? Is it too little? This is something that we want to discuss. As we discussed earlier as well, we're currently proposing a funding cap of $100,000 per business or per purchaser. Let's go to the next slide, please. This table is similar to the previous slide, but focuses on mowers and would vary based on the cost of the equipment. Because mowers are a little more expensive, we would cover 70% of the traditional lawnmower with a maximum voucher amount of $1,750 for walk-behinds. Further, CORE would cover 100% of the cost for 2 additional batteries, regardless of the size, as well as 1 charger. Again, we'd open to discussing what those limits would be, and would like to open it up to your comments at this time.
All right, we'll start with the raised hands first. So we have a raised hand from Lauren Elkin. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, my name is Lauren Elkin at Valley Memorial Park. We've got multiple riding lawnmowers with a 60-inch deck with a blower to pick up the green waste. As you know, California has a requirement that all green waste has to be disposed of off-site. So we've got, in addition to the lawnmower, we also have a machine to go ahead and accumulate that grass. Those machines are running us right now about $30,000 plus. And based upon inflation rates, we're anticipating those prices are going up. I think what you need to be doing is talking with several of the key manufacturers to see where their real base price is, because 70%, $15,000 is not 70% for a high-end lawnmower that is using anywhere from 10, 20, 30, 40 acres at a time. In terms of the, I like your idea in terms of the additional batteries and chargers. I do think that as part of this whole process, when you're looking at vouchers, that you definitely need to include a disposal guidance so that people know how to safely dispose of the equipment. So it all becomes part of that process, and you tie that to the voucher, that in order for them to get the voucher, they have to acknowledge that they are going to dispose of the equipment safely and properly, because it is hazardous waste. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Apologize for that. I was on mute again. Next question, please.
We have a raised hand from Chris Benz. Chris, you've
Thank
been unmuted.
Thank you, Chris Benz with Napa Climate Now. And I wanted to give you information from the dealer that I spoke with. He carries Still equipment, which is the brand used by 2 of the municipalities in Napa County. And one of the things he said is that there's currently no commercial grade battery powered ride-on mowers available.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, and but he said the walk behind mower, the cost for that, which includes a battery and charger, is $800.
Okay.
So that's a pricing information. He also said that the commercial grade leaf blowers do not come with a vacuum. And then the battery for a small business, which would need actually 2 batteries, one that they're working with, one that they're charging. For a leaf blower, the backpack battery and charging cord is $1,500, and then the additional battery and cord to the charger is another $1,400. So it's almost $3,000 for the 2 batteries that would be needed of the charger and a backpack carrier. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next raised hand is from Kathy Less. Kathy, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Kathy Less, and I'm with the Sierra Curtis Neighborhood Association, and in particular, our committee known as the Clean and Quiet Yard Care Committee. And you heard from Nancy McKeever, one of our members earlier, and we have been talking to landscapers in our neighborhood. And honestly, we just get so much negative reaction. I don't see how $250 is going to be an incentive enough for them to go out and switch from gas to electric when they already tell us that they're happy with what they're using because it's what they're familiar with. And when we first started these meetings with CARB, Eloy, thank you for your lovely presentation today, by the way. And I was so excited that you actually come from a family of landscapers. And I know this isn't about you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but does that sound like, do these sound like the kind of amounts that would be of interest to those that you know in the landscaping community? Would $250 for a blower move them? And because so many of us are much more concerned about the blowers and the mowers, we're just stymied as to why there's more of a rebate for mowers than blowers.
This isn't about me, Kathy. This is about the other folks who would be utilizing this program. But thank you for your comment on that, and we will make we will take it and look at it and see what we do and work with manufacturers out there and base our voucher process based on those values. Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
I'd also, and thank you, Kathy, for your comment. The other thing that I'd like to state is that the voucher amount we calculated based on incremental cost. And so if we can get other additional cost information where, like the Lauren had mentioned, and so we'll double check all of those things for sure. But for all of the equipment that are eligible through CORE, the manufacturers actually have to apply. It's not just something that you can go to a local store to just buy. They have to be on the eligible category. So the manufacturers actually have to apply their equipment meeting our requirements that we're trying to define here. And so far with that equipment eligibility, it's commercial grade as they have defined it, but it's also the 2-year commercial warranty. So I just want to make sure that that's clear about the types of equipment that will be included in this program. It's not all equipment. It has to be the manufacturers, the dealers, the participants that are all willing to go towards zero emission with these dollars.
let's go with the, thank you for your comment. Let's go to the next couple of hands here.
Thank you. We've got a raised hand from Ron Asklund. Ron, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi, this is Ron Askin again with SD Sequel. We've been in contact with Berman's office, who was the author of getting the $30 million into SB 170, and really asking them to provide a little bit more guidance in what they really meant. But I'm certain they didn't mean 40 acres and $30,000 ride-on mowers. That is not going the right direction to what we want to do to enable these small landscapers. So I really agree with comments from Chris and Kathy about realistic amounts for the professional leaf blowers. So it sounds like instead of $250, it should be well over $1,000 for the units. I guess that's my main comment. Thanks.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We have a raised hand from Daniel Mabe. Daniel, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Dan Mabe, American Green Zone Alliance. Thanks for letting me come in again. I just had a comment and then a question. The comment to the last caller that was mentioning prices from a dealer. Actually, the top electric walk behind 21-inch electric mowers, commercial ones, they're going to range in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, actually. So I just want, and that there really is actually commercial rated riding mowers, just to let her know that they exist on the market and they have upwards of 10 years, one particular brand. But I did want to ask about the free battery, the covered 100%. When you say 2 cartridges, I think you're referring to what we refer to as on board. It would be the smaller batteries that go directly on the tool versus the backpack battery, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
We just didn't know the right terminology, but thank you. We'll refer to it now as on board because we were thinking.
No. I'm not even saying that. I kind of like I like the cartridge terminology, but also, so it's either or. They can get 2 of the smaller onboard batteries or 1 backpack battery in addition to the funding amounts towards the tools.
That's what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
our suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that for my notes here, and I just did want to say, if you reached out to us again offline, we have some really good economic models that are just based on real case studies, and they range from academic, municipal operations all the way up to the sole proprietors who are doing anywhere from 8 to 15 homes a day. We will just hand over that information, so it may lend to this program coming out is balanced as can be. So be sure to reach out to us in the future, and we'd be more than happy to share some of that information with you.
No, Dan, that would be great. And from the last work group meeting, we received some other cost information we asked for. So if folks have cost information that can help us nail us down to the right voucher amount, that would be very helpful. We'd really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from Peter Dufoy. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hello, my name's Pete Defoe. I'm actually a past president of the California Landscape Contractors Association. I'm also a business owner. Well, I qualify as one of your small businesses. We have tried to incorporate already a battery system in our landscape maintenance operations. One of the challenges that I haven't heard discussed is range anxiety. I guess would be the best way to explain it, is the fact that batteries are very heavy, and to really operate on a commercial level, you need to have a backpack battery for the larger consumers of power, which are blowers and chainsaws and mowers. But there isn't a mower that accepts a backpack style battery. So one of the problems is where are you charging these? And none of the manufacturers that I know of are currently making a vehicle-based charging system. They're all 120 based systems. So there's a definite need for a mobile charging system, because most maintenance, and especially the smaller guys, move from job to job to job. And so they don't have the time to charge a battery while they're on the job site. They're not going to leave a battery and then come pick it up later unless it's in a lockbox, which is, once again, it's that availability of being able to keep moving and keep charging your equipment. And then the other problem is when you get into high heat situations, the guys are not going to want to wear a backpack, because that's basically suffocating their back and doesn't allow them to ventilate. And it's also putting a lot of weight on the employee or the worker. So I'd like you guys to try to address some of those issues going forward too, and even with the industry, because, on a commercial basis, on guys that have to move around a lot, these issues are going to present themselves, and they're challenges to implementing a battery system on a long-term basis. And that's part of the reason they tend not to want to use these, because of gas power to work ratio is much higher. You get a lot more work out of a gas piece of equipment than you do a battery operated piece of equipment. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
We'll do let's do a couple of the written questions, and then we'll proceed on. We're almost done with our presentation here, and then we'll open up to all of the questions we have remaining in queue. And if we need to go back to certain spots in the presentation, we'll keep the presentation open and flip back to some of these things that we've discussed here this afternoon.
Thank you, Eloy. Got a question here. What type of documents are required to document annual revenue and thus eligibility for the funding program? And how does this play into the function of dealer attestation?
That's a great comment. We haven't necessarily settled on the documents or the process that we utilize, and so we're looking for proposals and recommendations from folks like you. So if you have something, please send it over. Now, we've heard a little bit today about potentially looking at business cards and other things like that for folks who may not necessarily have all the documentation that we're looking for. But we're open to different types of proposals. And I don't know, Tess or Todd, if you wanted to chime in on any of that.
I think that you answered correctly. I think that we're open to suggestions in terms of like supporting documentation. I think one of the things that has come up, and somebody had mentioned the South Coast program with the dealer's attestation. What are the appropriate documentations for that as well? And so that's a little bit of what you've touched on. So we're open to listening. That's what we're thinking about right now. So we're finding all these different pathways of documentation of support.
But your questions do bring up things that we're going to be considering as we put these components together. So please reach out to us. Let's go to the next one. Amrit?
Yeah. The next question was, will there be 2 separate implementation manuals or just one?
This is a great question. There will be one implementation manual. However, there are various appendices or attachments within the document. There will be a specific attachment, what we call attachment D, as in David, that will be specifically for commercial landscapers. And also within the implementation manual, there'll be the dealer's application as well, or the dealer's participation requirements and manufacturer's application equipment verification process. And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, there may be some variation between landscape equipment and how that equipment gets listed for eligibility versus, say, a yard truck or a high capacity forklift. They're two completely different pieces of equipment, but we still want to make sure that whatever we are funding meets an expectation of commercial viability. But thank you so much for that comment.
Thank you, Eloy. We have two comments from Lauren Elkin. Really concerned with the disposal of equipment, your guidance needs to identify how users should safely and properly dispose of the equipment. And the second part to that was, does cemetery consider
professional landscaper? Yeah, I think we answered that second one earlier. Okay. We're going by what's written in Senate Bill 170. As for the disposal, you're absolutely correct, and that is one of the things that I mentioned earlier, that we do have a dealer application process, and that is one of the questions that we ask is what is the end of life process for both the equipment and the battery. And many of the manufacturers that we've talked to do have a process for recycling, disposal, and other processes for recycling their equipment. So thank you so much for that comment. We'll do one more of the Q&A, and then we'll move on to the finale of the presentation.
All right. Next question was from Dennis Huggins. How are you going to determine what is a
I think commercial piece of equipment? Yeah, so I went through that earlier. We're looking at serviceability, a minimum 2-year warranty, and of course, a designation from the manufacturer.
Thank you. Did you want to go over to raise hands?
No, I think what we'll do now is just go back to the presentation and then finish up, and then we'll come back and finish up our written Q&As, as well as those folks who have raised hands. I do also want to encourage those who may be on the interpretation line to, if they want to type in a question in Spanish, that's fine. We'll read it and we'll translate it for the group. So that there are no limitations here for this presentation today. Let's go ahead and go to slide 13, please. And again, before I fully launch into this, we can circle back to anything that we presented today and continue to discuss it after we've completed the presentation. CORE also allows co-funding. We commonly refer to it as stacking, and it might be easy to visualize the stacking of bills one on top of the other. You might see something like that in Vegas. We use the term interchangeably, co-funding and stacking, but it simply means a process by which purchasers can use funding from CORE and other incentive programs for the same purchase, with the understanding, of course, that you would still need to follow the incentive rules for each. Depending on the circumstance, participants may be eligible for various co-funding opportunities. In some cases, these additional funding opportunities could leave applicants with little out-of-pocket costs. However, there will be requirements for participation that go beyond those within CORE. This includes, but is not limited to, an application process and most likely scrapping of the equipment. Let me provide a visual example of what this might look like. Let's go to the next slide, please. This table shows the potential benefits of this unique opportunity. As I mentioned, and as you can see here, a purchaser could potentially have zero cost for all new equipment, so long as they've met the requirements of CORE and the other co-funding program. There are a few parallel programs that are run by various cities, municipal organizations, and regions of the state, but not all areas have co-funding programs. There could be places in the state that where there may not be these opportunities. Derek Winters is our lead staff who oversees the coordination of a few of these funding programs that goes through a different branch within CARB. Derek will provide a short presentation on co-funding and discuss some of the requirements for the programs he's working on. Derek?
Thank you, Eloy. My name is Derek Winters, and I am the lead staff working on the lawn and garden updates for the Carl Moyer program. And I'm excited to tell you about the additional co-funding opportunity with the CORE Moyer programs. Sorry, next slide, please. Currently, we are updating the Moyer guidelines to better align with the core program. I will talk more about the specifics of that on the next slide. Sorry about that. Although Moyer will be eligible to more applicants, to specifically co-fund and align with core requirements, co-funding with core will be limited to small businesses or sole proprietor commercial applicants. Eligible applicants will apply to the local air district, and applicants will have to scrap or turn in to be destroyed existing gasoline or diesel equipment to be eligible for Moyer funding for a zero-emission electric equivalent. Next slide, please. The specifics of the Moyer guideline proposal updates are as follows. Expansion of equipment categories beyond lawnmowers to handheld equipment like chainsaws, string trimmers, blowers, and riding lawnmowers. The addition of commercial applicants beyond residential entities to include large and small businesses. Sorry about that. Municipalities and institutions. The other change would be the addition of co-funding language. This would be to propose criteria to facilitate and co-fund with core funds. These details are still being worked out, and similar to the core meetings, like this one, we will have a public meeting to discuss these Moyer guideline changes with the public in the near future. If you have any questions on anything related to Moyer, please reach out to your local air district who implements the Moyer program locally. They are the best people that can inform you of the process to apply for these funds. Back to you, Eloy.
Thank you so much, Derek, for that presentation. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, slide 17. So you've heard me talk a little bit about dealers and the role that they will play. Dealers are going to play a key role in core. Manufacturer-approved dealers who wish to participate in core must be trained and approved. Only approved dealers will be allowed to participate. CalSTART, our program administrator, will provide training for participation in the program. Dealers would work closely with manufacturers to ensure employees have appropriate workforce training and that is made available to the staff through the business or through other educational opportunities. We're also seeking a user training component where a dealer can train a purchaser. The current implementation manual has a section dedicated to dealer terms and conditions. However, some of the terms and conditions may not necessarily apply to this equipment type. As we move forward, we'll ask dealers to take a look at the current implementation manual, specifically attachment C, and provide your input on what works and what may not apply for this equipment type. Let's go to the next slide, please. And based on the project schedule I presented earlier, we will have more than we'll have one more work group meeting. And at that meeting, we will present the final implementation manual attachment. This will impact professional landscapers and equipment. As with this meeting, we will use the feedback as with previous meetings, we will use the feedback we've collected to further develop the implementation manual. Outreach is always challenging. So if you know someone or are a member of an organization who can help us reach out to the impacted parties who could most benefit, please help us out. Send us an email to the ones listed here, and we will do our best to reach out to those folks. I realize this was a lot of information. I will open it up to additional comments and questions. I know we didn't get to everyone just yet. And again, if you have questions in Spanish, please don't hesitate to respond. We ask that you raise your hand or type in your question, and we'll go ahead and move forward. So let's go with a few of the written questions first, And we'll knock out 5 of those. It looks like we got 25, and then we'll flip back. We've got about a half hour, or actually we've got about about 37 minutes before the top of the end of the scheduled meeting. So let's see if we can get everyone in before the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Eloy. The first one here is a comment. There is a legal definition and calculation for full-time equivalent employees.
Good. I mean, that was a great comment earlier. So we'll look into that definition. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Our question from Matthew Brogra. Instead of limiting the size of the company, how about limit the total amount of rebates per company? Maybe have a maximum of 20,000 per company to start off.
Yeah, I think we heard that earlier. That's a great comment. We thank you so much.
All right, our next question is from Daniel Mabe. Is the funding covering equipment that helps to manage and charge all of these batteries is scalable and safe way?
I think we discussed this a little bit as well, that there's certain infrastructure needs and things that we will need to take into consideration as we fund these pieces of equipment. So thank you so much for that comment.
Thank you, Eloy. Our next comment here was from Matthew Frazier. Thank you each and all for your presentation this afternoon. I am a key holder and an assistant manager with Ace Hardware. Unless we're working to persuade our customers to go battery operated equipment whenever possible.
I think we answered Matt's question earlier, so thank you so much, Matt, for your comment.
We have another question here. Why would you limit to under 10 employees when those of us have under 20 employees will struggle financially tremendously when we are licensed landscape contractors and follow all rules by the state? It does not seem fair.
That's a great comment. Thank you so much. We'll be looking at various angles and perhaps find ways to approach it for other parties. Go ahead, Tess.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that one. Maybe we could go back to that slide because we're not going to be eliminating it. It's just more about the flow of availability to the purchasers. And so that's what the 10 employees or less is not for the whole program. Yes, it is a first come, first served program. However, we were thinking, at least in the proposal, and that's what was offering for discussion, was maybe the first 6 months would be limited to 10. After that, then it would be for other micro businesses by definition that's in the, oh, let me look at the slide now. Slide 7, I think. Yeah, slide 7. We also received feedback that, and someone, I just remember the comment where a single employee, that they figured that if we could figure out a way of like rolling out maybe a portion of that competition first for them. So something about that.
All right, let's go ahead and go to the next comment there.
Thank you. Our next question here is from Lauren Elkin. Can you post the responses to the question and answers on the website within the next 2 weeks?
I think we mentioned that our presentation, a copy of this presentation will be posted to the website for folks to listen to. Todd, did you want to add to it?
Yeah, it usually takes me a couple days to get that up on the web, on our webpage. So give me a week and the presentation will be up there.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a comment from CJ Nord. I would like to offer to serve as a supply chain subject matter expert for this effort, and I can follow up with my qualifications.
That's great. We'd love to hear from you. So you can contact me. My email address is at the end of this presentation. So just give me an email and we'll set up a meeting.
Slide 18, Amrit, thank you.
Right. I think we'll take one more written question and move on to the hands, Eloy.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So our question here is from Daniel Lang. Can a fleet move a piece of equipment from one site to another during the 3-year operational period?
I think it's, this may be associated with some of the other pieces in our program, but this isn't in commercial landscape. I hope you're using it on various
But no, yeah, I think Danny, if you have questions about that, why don't you give me contact me and we can talk about this separately. We're trying to keep this for landscapers.
Yeah, and so for the landscapers, it has to stay in California for 3 years. That is what it is.
And part to that question was, when a voucher is submitted, does the fleet need to be on standby to acknowledge and approve the voucher request?
Again, I think this is for heavy duty equipment. So Danny, why don't you give me a call or send me an email and we can meet up and talk about this.
Thank you. So we'll move on to a couple of our raised hands here. Our first raised hand is from Brandon Glover. Brandon, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hey, this is Brandon Glover from Still, Pacific Still out of Visalia, California. I just want to thank Eloy there and Todd for all the hard work you've been doing on this core program. I just wanted to ask a couple questions. The very first one I have is I didn't see hedge trimmers as part of the proposed equipment. Have you guys considered that, or is that not going to be part of the program?
No, we would definitely consider hedge trimmers. So perhaps if we're clarifying pieces of equipment, it's probably missed, and we should probably add that. And if there are other pieces that we should specifically clarify or call out, please let us know.
Okay, thank you. The other question, the other kind of comment that I had for you is when it comes to equipment out there, there's a whole bunch of different manufacturers, and some of them kind of kit all the battery equipment together, where they'll have the unit, the battery, and the charger. At Still, we do some of that, but on the professional units, it's all a la carte. So you have to buy the battery, the unit, and the charger separately. So I think the problem is you've got two different approaches of how you're going about this. So a lot of companies will kit them together as we're doing it separately. But if you put it all together as a package, let's just give you kind of a good example. Our BJ200, which would be comparable to like a commercial backpack blower, and you would add a backpack battery to run it and a charger, you're about $2,000 total for that. So I think if you're going to get about $250 for the unit, and then if you get $1,200 for the battery, you'd be about $500 for the tool, which is a pretty deep discount, and I think that would be good. So you kind of have to, when you're looking at these things, you're going to have to maybe kind of consider that some of them are a la carte, some of them are together, kitted together. So I did send an email to Todd, and that kind of did some comparables, and it sounded like some other people have sent that to you too. So if you need any more information, just let me know. Then the third part of it is when it comes to, and I've kind of talked about this in the last workshop, is about the warranty and using that as kind of as the guideline for if it's a commercial piece of equipment. I still think that's a good part of it, but I think you need to go a little bit more into it. But I mean, we have a 2-year commercial warranty on almost all our battery equipment, except for our top panel chainsaws. Our top panel chainsaws have the same warranty as our gas ones, which is 90 days. It's still commercial grade. So I would also think that maybe if you are kind of stuck on wanting to do a commercial warranty, a 2-year warranty, I would also say that if you use Z certification as a standard, I think it should, the option, it doesn't matter what the warranty is, if it already meets the state standards for commercial use. So you might want to consider that in regards to, what kind of equipment are you allowing into the program. So, and that's about all the comments I have. But again, thank you for your time and gathering all the information from end users and manufacturers and dealers. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Those are great comments. And I did receive your email. I haven't dug into it yet, but I will dig into it. Busy day today.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your comments, Brandon.
Thank you. We've got our next raised hand from Mateo Waldberger. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hi there, this is Mateo Waldberger. I just wanted to say one last thing on behalf of these smaller companies, especially the mom and pop, as it was referred to before, and I've heard it referred as a single truck operation. I like the idea of the bottom up business first, However, when speaking about citizens and residential, I think, when you're looking at ROI, you're looking at maybe 4 hours a month for an average citizen using these tools versus somebody like myself or these other mom and pop companies who, do 8 to 15 homes and work 60 hours a week. So I think there is a lot more ROI return on or investment on that. And then another thing that I would love to be put on that list would be dump trailers. I mentioned in the chat that that's something that's kind of like a Swiss Army knife for many of the smaller companies, because we can load our mowers, all of our tools on that machine. When we get to a job site, we unload it all. And, any trimmings or anything that we need is on the dump trailer. And another thing I was going to say for these smaller companies where I've heard others speaking say, these larger companies have access to these tools, but only will use them upon request. I think us, I can speak for the smaller companies that we don't have range anxiety when it comes to this. For example, right now myself, I'm looking at a dump trailer as I grow my business, still a one-man operation, but I have the option to buy a used gas operated dump trailer for $2,500, or I can buy the electric alternative for $10,000 to $12,000. So there is no range anxiety, I believe, when it comes to these smaller companies, because we're ready to work. We just need the help and funding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mateo. And Mateo, if you have the opportunity, if you don't mind shooting us an email,
of course,
at the email contact information you see on the screen.
Yeah. Mateo and I have been going back and forth. If you send us some more information about the dump trailers, I'll look into that. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have our next raised hand by Matthew Fogra. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hello, this is Matt Fogarty, a suburban guy who doesn't like the sound of these things, of the gasoline things. So one great benefit with electric tools is that they're very simple. They require very little support. They last a long time. Very little servicing is required, and very little training is required. And because of that, you don't, in terms of the support that you would normally need from a dealer, is just not going to be that required. I'm concerned by requiring the dealer to provide these services. You're going to exclude many large corporations like the big boxes like Home Depot or Lowe's, where many of the small guys go to buy their equipment. If we want to get the maximum bang for buck and allow people to do it, allowing these big box stores that may not be able to offer servicing, training, support for these tools will exclude many participants in this market. So I think that those requirements are overly restrictive and will exclude a lot of people. And because of the nature of the tool being so simple to maintain, no training required, that I think that you should take those requirements out to allow more dealers and more retailers to participate.
Thank you so much for your comment, Matt. Really appreciate it. Let's go to the next comment.
All right, thank you. Our next raised hand is from Daniel Mabe. Daniel, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Yeah, Dan Mabe with the American Green Zone Alliance. I just want to respond to the last caller. It's not self-serving, but we beg to differ. I come from the gas industry myself. I converted to electric pre-lithium in the mid-2000s, and there's just case after case after case where people have gone in and purchased equipment without any guidance, and they've been just very disappointed and in the entire experience. And they really do, especially with the safety. I mean, we know about the safety issues that exist out there when people are bringing upwards of 10 batteries home to their apartment and plugging them into power strips. So, I do understand that it's an extra layer, but we feel to keep this industry safe first and foremost, and then also to help them maximize the efficiencies of the electric equipment and ultimately be profitable and have all of this be a success for everyone. We feel that component is essential. I want to go back to Mr. Defoe's comments, very legitimate, all of those concerns, the range anxiety. He did say that backpacks cannot be placed on mowers. That's not true. There are 2 models out there where you can use backpack batteries on the mower itself. We will not be a commercial for any of the brands, but I can tell you one of the brands that we've independently tested, we're witnessing real time over 3 hours on one charge for a walk behind 21-inch commercial mower. And then also for the onboard batteries, just to know that it's come a long way. The manufacturers have really been paying attention. There's a lot of flexibility in the watt hour ranges on these onboard batteries. Of course, they're going to vary in weight, but they range anywhere from 250 watt hours up to 800 watt hours. And for example, if you're running a hedge trimmer, hedge trimmer is the biggest bang for your buck in run time, converting from gas to electric. We've seen some tremendous run times on all of the saws, the pole saws, the top handle, the rear handle. The biggest draw, of course, the highest amperage draw is going to be the blowers. And that is why we suggest that there be a high capacity backpack battery used with the blowers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate your comment.
Yep.
Thank you. Our next raised hand is from Matthew Frazier. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Yes, this is Matthew Frazier with Ace Hardware out in California. You can disregard my last question in the chat. I'm going on your website and seeing if there's any possibility of in-store training with any of your representatives, for myself, for any of the sales associates, the ownership of the management teams.
Yeah, so that is a process that we are currently in developing, and that we would once our implementation manual is complete, certainly something that we would put out there so that folks like yourself could take advantage of. Of course, this is also incumbent upon the manufacturer and their participation and training as well. And I'm sure they're going to have a say as to what goes where and who gets to do what. So, but yeah, absolutely, there will be a training process. You would reach out to, as I mentioned earlier, our project administrator would handle a lot of that process. Tess, did you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I would just say that if you look at the current core implementation manual that is currently posted, that's a part of the dealership application portion. Once you apply, there is a training that our grant administrator provides, making sure that you understand the program and that there's the terms and conditions and that you understand the role that you play in the larger scheme of the core program. So that's a part of it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. We have a raised hand from Peter Dufoy. Peter, you've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Pete Defoe, landscape contractor in Southern California area and past president of the Landscape Contractors Association. I seemed earlier on, we were battling around the idea of how to legitimize who's a professional user and who's not. You know, every city that you operate in, you have to have a business license. And if you're doing more than a certain amount of money, you're supposed to have a contractor's license and you're supposed to be paying taxes. And if this is a taxpayer funded operation that we're giving these money back, shouldn't we make sure that the people that are doing the work are paying taxes and they're the legitimate taxpayers are getting the ones that are getting the rebate for paying their taxes? Just one suggestion for looking at how you're rebidding. The other thing, thank you for the person that made the comment about the 21-inch mower that had a back. I wasn't aware of that. You do become married to a certain manufacturer when you're buying a system. You have to basically, it's just like a cordless drill. Once you're into one system, you have to maintain that brand. So that creates limitations sometimes if you didn't choose the right brand, or if they don't have a certain amount of product that goes with that same battery, because you make a large investment in the battery and the chargers, and then the equipment comes along with that. So just another point to bring up. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And yeah, the great thing about the program is we're getting a lot of great feedback from major manufacturers, and I know a lot of folks in the industry are tied to their particular brand. So yeah, so that's a great comment. Thank you, sir. Let's go to the next raised hand, please.
Yeah, we have a raised hand from Sherry Rodriguez. You've been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hey, Sherry.
Sherry, you're still muted.
Oh,
so you got to.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
My name is Sherry Rodriguez, owner of Ferber Saw in Martinez, California, Northern California, established in 1976. So I just wanted to address the disposal of the batteries again. We have had some experience with battery. We used to repair battery handheld drills, skill saws, things like that. And it ended up that we kind of ended up being the drop off, and there was no program, and it was costly for us. And so, but I know of no manufacturer right now that has a disposal plan. So as far as an OP dealer right now, it is up to our end user to take the battery to their local hazardous waste facility. And, you know, I'm a little concerned about that. And I wanted to also address the comment about the big box stores should be included. And as a small business who struggles to compete with the big box stores, you know, that's a little concerning for me. We have more knowledge for our end user. We also have the service side, and that just would, I would want that to be considered to be left out. And wanted to reiterate inventory supply right now. We have lists from fire departments, counties, national landscapers, small landscapers, tree people. We just don't have the product to sell. And then if we have a unit, a battery unit, we don't have the battery. So it's just all kinds of problems, you know, and I don't foresee it being solved. You know, some components come from Ukraine, some come, you know, it's just been problem from the beginning of COVID and just continued. So that's all I wanted to say.
Sherry, thank you. First, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here with us.
Thank you.
And, you know, we, as part of our, as I mentioned earlier in our presentation, as part of our process, we will be asking manufacturers about a disposal plan.
Okay.
And we do also recognize that the relationship between the user and their dealer is something special. And
yes.
So we recognize that. And thank you so much for being here. Tess,
So,
I think you wanted to chime in.
Yeah, also, if any dealers that are on the call, if there's, I mean, it'd be nice, it'd be helpful to us if we could gauge like sort of the supply chain delay. And so if you could send an email to Todd and or Eloy, just to kind of to give them that information, I think that would be great. That helps us with to decide the sort of the flow of the program as we release things. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
Sure, please shoot us an email.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Next question, please. Next raised hand.
Yeah, we have a raised hand from Leslie Macias. You have been unmuted. Please unmute yourself to speak and state your name and affiliation.
Hey, Leslie.
Hi, good evening. My name is Leslie Macias. I am with Mission Landscape Companies. To touch base really quick, there is a Battery Recyclers Association that you can turn stuff into. I know more information is available at powertoolsinstitute.com. So a good source for your battery recycling. And then I had just a couple questions. So the first one would be, how is the voucher system going to look? Is it something where the purchaser is going to be paying up front the full cost and then reimbursed, or will it be an actual voucher that they go in with to get that discount?
I'll tell you how it currently works right now. And that is a person shows up and they see a product. If it qualifies for the voucher, that I'll say discount is produced right then and there.
Okay.
The dealer submits the paperwork on their behalf. It gets transmitted to our project administrator, who then cuts the dealer a check for that particular purchase.
Okay.
We anticipate that the program will work pretty much exactly the way we have it set up in the other programs. There might be a few caveats here and there. It is a web-based system, and so it should be relatively easy to continue to implement in that manner.
Okay, and then another quick one. So I know in a previous program, there was specific approved equipment where it was limited down to the model. And then like with the supply chain issues everybody's talking about, if that model runs out, the funds are still there, but you can't purchase something that is adequate for your situation. So will there be any option for additional models or additional manufacturers even with everything that's changed so quick? I know there were a few manufacturers in previous years that came out but were uneligible because they didn't qualify in that specific time frame.
So we as you may have heard from a couple of them here today, we're working with manufacturers. They're kind of aware of what we're doing, and we will, with you, announce that this process is open and that they can begin to submit their applications for participation in the program. And that will include them submitting their information about their pieces of equipment so that they can be made eligible and put on a website that will list the equipment that can receive a voucher. So not every piece of equipment that a manufacturer sells will be eligible. It will only be those pieces of equipment that they submit as meeting the commercial standard that we've set out, and meets the criteria that we set forth. We talked a little bit about it: warranty, serviceability, and that potential designation. Tess, did you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, so Leslie, if you go to the website on californiacorps.org, there's currently a catalog, and that's what's going to happen, I think, in some capacity for this eligible equipment for professional landscaping services. But what we would love input at is maybe we do need to ask a question on the manufacturer's applications, because they have to apply as well to participate, related to supply chain or deliverability or prioritization, something like that. If we want to put that in the terms and conditions, that's the kind of feedback we would need. And the point of reference right now we have is for the other freight, construction, ag equipment, those types of equipment are in the catalog now. There's sample applications for manufacturers and dealers, and so and purchasers. So we're also trying to figure out, how do we take that program and more appropriately apply it to professional landscaping equipment and this market. So any input you could provide on that, that would be wonderful.
Right, and maybe that's something we can put in Appendix D. If there's supply chain issues, they can go to choice B, or something like that. That their number one choice they can't get because where it's 2 years out or something like that. But they can get this piece, and we can supply them with money for that. Maybe something along those lines.
Yeah. And then, sorry to take up so much time, just one quick last question.
Oh, go ahead. We're here for you.
So a lot of this obviously was pertaining to the smaller professional landscaper. And I kind of heard larger companies, but I missed part of what they were talking about on the Moyer side of the program.
So we
just wanted up to larger commercial landscapers, because not stepping on anybody's toes, everybody counts, but we have upwards of 250, 300 blowers and various pieces of equipment. So when would we be eligible for some assistance?
Well, as far as Moyer, that goes back to your local air district. So whoever I don't know where you're located, Leslie, but you'd have to talk to your local air district about Moyer funds and if they're participating with a state reserve portion of that. So get in contact with them if you're a larger business.
Okay.
Leslie, if you want to shoot us an email, I'll put you in touch with Derek, who's our Moyer coordinator here and has been helping us out for this presentation. And maybe they can help you get in touch with the right air district and see if there are funding options for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our last raised hand by Larry Emerson. Larry, you've been unmuted. 1 second, sorry. There we go, Larry, you've been unmuted.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Very good. Yes, Larry Emerson. I'm a member of the Electric Vehicle Association and San Diego Sequel. I want to chime in about the battery, not just disposal, but recycling. There's just like electric vehicles, there's a lot of good minerals and material in those batteries. Everybody's 12-volt battery that are in their cars now, about 95 to 98% of that material is recycled if it's turned in. And we should be pushing for the same type of effort in the long run on these batteries using this equipment. But I want to get back to the first come, first serve program. If there's a race going on or who's going to be able to enter this program, if there's dealers and vendors that have done this similar program in the past, they have a head start. And what I'm hoping do some outreach to dealers or vendors who haven't been involved with these kind of programs. And I'm in the San Diego area. I'm hoping you'll have some kind of outreach and bring those people who haven't been involved so they can get trained and involved early on. Give them some early schedule opportunity to get involved and learn how this program works. So the first come, first serve is a little more fair. So that's my concern, is that the dealers who've done this before will take advantage, and other areas of California will pull more of the funds rather than evenly disperse the funds. So if you can keep that in mind and take advantage of the different groups in our area, if you want to outreach to us and we get the word out to more dealers and vendors, retailers, we'll be glad to work with you on that effort. And thanks again for your efforts to refine and keep improving this program.
Thank you so much, Larry, for your comments. This is a new program, and so everyone's going to kind of start off on the same line here for the landscape. But yeah, we look forward to working with any folks that you have. If you want to send them our way, we'd be more than happy to get them plugged in. And I think that I would echo that for anyone on the call. If you have a friend or know somebody in this industry and you want them to have them participate in this program, please send them our way. We've got 5 minutes left, and we'll see if we can knock out some of these written comments. For those of you who did comment today, I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day. So let's see if we can knock out some of these written comments before the clock strikes 6, and then we'll call it a day.
All right, we have a question here. Is anyone addressing findings or solutions to repurpose and recycle dead batteries? We have 8 dead large riding mowers with no way to recycle or repurpose these dead batteries.
I think we talked a little bit about that. There appears to be some resources that some of the folks have addressed. However, we are not going to be addressing previously used equipment, but I would have you take a look at some of the things that we've discussed today and maybe some of your resources there locally.
I think that there was somebody who had mentioned the battery recycling, and if they could put that in the Q&A, just the link to it or the name of it, then that's a good resource for all, if it's for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We have a question from Carolyn Marsden. Please explain the reasoning behind not requiring scrapping. The gas equipment will continue to be used.
So again, this program is not a scrap and replace program. And so we don't require scrap.
Thank you, Eloy.
Renee, you're missing hedge trimmer. Yeah, thank you so much. We will make sure to get that in. My colleague, Matthew Diener, was kind enough to remind me that I should include hedge trimmer. So tip of the hat to him, and thank you so much. You're absolutely right. We'll get that in there.
Thank you. We have a question here. If this program is open to small businesses with less than 10 employees, the amount of equipment they need to buy shouldn't be that much. Can the overall funding cap drop for those businesses? Do they need up to $100,000?
That's a great question. We can, and one of the things that we were looking at, and based on some of the comments we received, we'll look into adjusting that number more accordingly. Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you. We have a question here from Jolene Fuentes. Would anyone who contracts with a landscape service be required to verify use of electric equipment?
That's a great question. So we do have certain pieces of equipment that do allow telematics data collection. And we've been told that there are some ways to actually collect this data, to collect data from handheld and some of the equipment's out there. At this time, it's something that we are considering and would consider as part of a proposal recommendation, but we thank you for the comment and we'll look into it a little further.
Thank you. We've got a comment from Chris Benz. The Style BGA 200 leaf blower without battery is $410.
Okay, thank you so much.
Got a question from Jesse Perez. Are you defining a small business to 10 employees or less?
As we discussed in the presentation, it is something that we're potentially, that was a proposal and something we wanted to share with the group and the audience to gather feedback. No determination has been made, but we wanted to see exactly what the group thought of that particular proposal.
Another question from Jesse Perez. Will larger landscape businesses not be allowed to participate in core vouchers?
So as we mentioned, the statute SB 170 limits the participation, limits these dollars to small business and sole proprietors. However, as my colleague Derek Winters mentioned, there may be other opportunities for larger businesses, entities, and municipalities to participate. So if you have any questions on that, you feel free to reach out to us, and we can put you in contact with Derek or your local area district to gather some more information. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you. Our next question asks, can we please include dump trailers on this list? It is like the Swiss Army knife of tools that are offered in electric versions.
And I think we got that from Mateo.
Yeah, we touched on it earlier.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We have a comment from Shida Morshed. I guess for documentation, televerification as they're doing with COVID tests. Have gardeners do live videos with CORE while at work and use their cell phone numbers as their ID.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you. We have a question from Carolyn Marsden. How do the dealers learn of this opportunity?
We're working feverishly with the manufacturers and their dealer network. However, if you know of a dealer who wants to participate, please feel free to take down our contact information, shoot us an email, or have them give us a call, send us an email as well. They can also go to californiacore.org and sign up to get on our mailing list, as well as Gov Delivery for this particular program.
Thank you. We have a question from Chris Benz. How soon do you plan for the third work group meeting to take place?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think we're shooting for the middle of July, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to put a date out just yet. However, I would suggest that if you, for everyone here, if you received a notice through Gov Delivery, you will receive a follow-up notice when that meeting is announced. And I'm hoping that all of you who are here show up for that meeting as well.
Yeah, and I would also say this is that, you know, you have Todd and Eloy's contact information, so one-on-one discussions are always welcome. We really want to, by that third work group, we want to be further along with what's more like draft final, what is ready to go. That way we can get manufacturers and dealers, open that door and application period for them.
Great.
Thank you. Just a quick comment from Ron Asland. Great to have Derek Winters on board.
Derek's a great guy. I agree.
All right. Our next comment here. Not all local air districts will have co-funding available through the Moira program, since not all will be available to have a program in place in time, or might not be open when core opens for this category. I know Eloy mentioned that, but just wanted to reiterate that specifically. Please check with your local air district to make sure.
You are absolutely correct that not every air district will have a Moira program, but there are also local programs and from municipalities as well as power companies. Just so it wouldn't necessarily just be limited to. We could potentially look at other funding opportunities, but thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you. We have another question here. If a company gets equipment funding and then merges with another landscape company, does that disqualify them from meeting the 3-year commitment?
That's an interesting comment. It's something we may need to take a look at.
Yeah. We'll have to think about that one. Mostly because these dollars are specifically for small business sole proprietors. So if that business relationship changes, that business model changes, we'll have to think about that.
Thank you. We have a comment here from Mateo Waldberger. I agree with the current speaker. I guess this was a little bit earlier. Trailer companies don't really need to explain how to use a dump trailer. It's a single button and it is attached to a car battery and at the front of a trailer. We have another comment here from CJ Nord. Perhaps a charging infrastructure is needed. I am very concerned about so much charging being done in homes. I will follow up with Todd tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think we can end on that one. We're over time. These are all great questions. If you have comments, questions, or want to talk about this more, meet with us one-on-one, that we're happy to do that. Eloy's contact information is here, my contact information is here, and so we're more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who stayed and stayed with us throughout the presentation. I also want to thank my team so much for all their support in putting this presentation together. Again, if you were in attendance for today's meeting, as soon as the next meeting is announced, we'd hope that you will attend, and we hope to see you then. Until then, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Shoot us an email and feel free to reach out to us. Thank you so much. Have a great and wonderful evening.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Mark.